Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Hit the record button.
Gosh, that's swell.
It's a low blog talk radio.
Hello. This is a very special edition of Italo Blog Talk Radio, and this is your host, Italo. I am very, very honored to have my guest calling in today. I've been actually wanting to talk to Luis Rodriguez for a very long time on Blog Talk Radio, because when I met him, and basically Luis Rodriguez, for those that don't know, he's an author, he's a writer, community organizer, and healer. He co-founded Tia Chucha's Centro Cultural and Bookstore in Silmar, and he's authored, great among other publications. He wrote basically the Always Running. That was the best-selling memoir back in the days. He was always running La Vida Loca, 10 Days in LA. That was the one that was more famous. But now he's writing From Our Land to Our Land, essays, journeys, and imaginings from a Native Xicanx Writer. So welcome to the show, Luis Rodriguez. I am, like I said, I'm very honored to have you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you, Victor. Appreciate it.
So, and the reason I have you on, and I've been doing, Blog Talk Radio for a while, and it's changing now to now a conscious decision to speak about the, police brutality and the protests that are going on, not only in Minnesota, in LA, and everywhere in the world now. Basically, they are standing up to the Black Power, the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I decided to have you on because I think who else is better than Luis Rodriguez to talk about this topic. So let me get my cat out of here.
But I think that's right. I think we have to talk about the movement and moment that we're in. I think it's very powerful. Of course, I'm happy to see it happening. I know people are concentrating on some of the problems, some looting, some violence, but what I see more than anything is a very coherent voice stepping out among all these people. And they're basically saying it's time to end all the pain, all the injustices, all the killings that's been founded in this country on the backs of Black people. And to me, it's important because it's going to affect all of us, even us who aren't African American. Everybody is going to be in this justice struggle. I think all justice struggles start there, and we have to take it all the way through.
Right. Because there's been actually, I've been noticing, because basically, social media is now my news source. I kind of dabble between, the other media, mainstream media, you should call it.
Right.
But as somebody said, a poet said that the revolution will not be televised. And I didn't realize what he meant until I seen the anatomy of these protests that are happening right now, and also the riots, which is not the same thing, being a protester and being a rioter. Somebody that causes riots, they're different entities. And it's very interesting to see how the media doesn't cover what is really happening. And somebody was saying the revolution will not be televised, and I realized what it is that people are not portrayed in the news media as it is. It's a peaceful protest. We were just fine, and then the police comes and entices, and they have the bricks, and they have the different things that I'm like, what is going on? I don't understand it.
Exactly. I have a daughter and a grandchild in Chicago, and they went to the protests. I have a grandson in North Carolina. He went to the protests, and a granddaughter in New York City. She's actually in Newark, but she went to the protests. All of them reported peaceful, very well organized protests. Nobody was instigating anything. But one thing that I heard from my grandson in North Carolina that I heard with my friends here in L.A. is that things got bad when the police started tear gassing and pushing people. Everything was good until that happened. And then on the fringes, some people started throwing rocks, started doing this, and then all kinds of things started happening. But they were first being attacked after doing things very well in the sense of peaceful and organized. And then, of course, there are people who are going to do what they're going to do no matter what's going on. But I do agree with you. Most of these demonstrations are huge now, tens of thousands, there's tens of millions of people in the street. The vast majority have not had any violence or any looting or any rioting, so-called rioting. And that's why I think it's important for people to understand and to know that there is a very coherent line of thought and thinking and purpose. The chaos is not really started by them. I think it started by the powers that be, including Trump and everybody below him, and even some police officers. Even though I understand there's police officers that are taking knees now, and other people that are going against police departments trying to defund them, and a number of things, which is all interesting. But I still think it's still clear that we want to take this all the way through. It isn't just about a reform here or a change there. It's about ending this kind of travesty that we see on a regular basis with black people being killed in our streets.
Right. And some people might say, well, they already have the police officers that were in the video, the George Floyd's video, and when we see him, basically putting his knee on George's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds or something like that.
Right.
And so you have them. You have the 4 people that are, that people have seen, who hasn't seen the video, right? So you have them 4. What else do you want, right? That's probably what people are asking. Why are you still protesting?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, because I do agree that that's good. It's also good that police officers are kneeling. It's also good that people are apologizing now, that the NFL commissioner for going against that knee that some of the players were doing in protest of police brutality. It's all good, but it's not good enough. You know what I'm saying? It can't stop the ongoing. Yeah, it's good. I don't think anybody wants to say it's terrible. It's just like, that's great, but we got to go all the way. Otherwise, we have gone to what happened in the past. People would do this, and things would sound good, and there'd be some changes, and guess what? Everything reverts back to what it was before. It's like a rubber band that you pull, and then all of a sudden you let it go. It goes back to what it was. I think we have to change the whole rubber band, the whole thing. I think it's societal transformation. There can't be inequity. There can't be disparities. There can't really be, in my opinion, police officers as a force that holds the power of life and death over anybody, particularly in black and brown communities, which I've seen all my life. I'm 66 years old this year. I have seen that all my life. They've had that power. They've killed people. They've beaten people up. They've arrested them under frenzy, so-called evidence. They've done a lot of things. It just can't continue. And I think that's what I'm hearing from the people out there. That's important. They're saying we got to keep going. We got to have full, complete justice and transformation.
Right. So what is the difference between, let's say back in the days when you were in the 90s and or before. I know that you've been a part of a a movement before. So let me put it this way: is there a difference now where everybody has been exposed to the raw footage and social media and people in the street talking about this is what's going on, this is the video that I shot, and see it for your own eyes. Don't believe the media.
Right.
Don't believe what you heard from CNN or from Fox News or from the president or why is it so different?
Well, one of the things that I was during the 60s. I grew up during the 60s. My first community I lived in the U.S. is Watts, and in 65 Watts burned, the Watts Rebellion. It was the costliest urban rebellion of the 60s of any city. And so my old neighborhood was burning up. I also was around in the 1970s Chicano moratorium against the Vietnam War that started rioting, and millions of dollars of property were destroyed and 3 people killed. I've been around a lot of these things. I was in that Chicago when the 92 uprising happened here in L.A. I came back from Chicago just to work with gang peace leaders at the time. In other words, I've seen I was in Miami when Overton blew up. I was in a lot of it. I've seen so much. And I think the difference is that in the 60s, the police actually did shoot people. You know, when Trump said when the looting starts, the shooting starts, the reality was they actually killed people, mostly black people. Most black people that were on the streets were being killed. It was hundreds and hundreds of people. Detroit and, and Ohio and New York City and Baltimore, there were so many cities that were burning and they were killing people. So that's one thing that's not quite happening now. But I think the other thing that you're pointing out, we didn't have the media that we do in the sense that now people got cameras, you can see all this stuff on YouTube. We didn't know all that. I knew because I kept track of it. Nobody was keeping track of it the way it is now. Regular folk are becoming the news media. And now they're showing a lot more of the police, exactly what happened then, but nobody really knew. That instigating, attacking people. Tear gas to me is terrible. It shouldn't be used. It's just one of those things. So I think that the social media now is opening up that world. And now we can see exactly what's going on. I know that there's people that are just concentrating on the looting and all this stuff. And even though that is happening, I don't condone it. I don't condone any of that stuff. It doesn't matter what I think. What I think is important is that people realize that most of it is organized and peaceful and is still being attacked. They're not necessarily attacking it at the looters. They're attacking it before all that happens. So anyway, I think you're right. The media, social media is opening up a whole new vista of what's going on. And there's allowing more people to then say, okay, now I can be involved. Now I want to be involved. That's why there's been millions of people in the streets last week or so.
Right. And we'll still be there. I mean, I haven't been there myself, but I wanted to be there so bad that seeing everything that's been going on, it kind of like, I don't know. I just stepped back for a minute. I do want to go out there, but there's many ways to protest too. I was watching the commissioners, the police commissioners interview, and they had a Zoom meeting with the people, and that actually inspired me a lot because a lot of people were voicing their opinions with the commissioners, and of course Garcetti wasn't there. Anyways, but yeah, it was really emotional to hear all the voices, especially the young 16-year-old and 17-year-old. They're more open to talking, to confronting the officials, and I just admire that. I'm like, wow, that is different. I've never seen this before.
And they're very wise, too. Yeah. I mean, young people are saying some powerfully important things. I've heard a lot of poetry coming out of some of these protests by these young people, a lot of good, strong language. imagery. They're very clear. I think that says a lot about our youth. And, I'm also like you. I have not been able to go to any of the actual protests. I'm kind of secluded here at home. I'm, vulnerable to COVID-19, and I was hospitalized during the whole pandemic. So, I had pneumonia, and then I had gallbladder stones, and I had liver problems, and I had to get 2 surgeries. I'm doing very well now, but I'm just concerned about that. But like you say, I'm protesting my own way. I'm actively talking to people. I'm writing on social media and doing Facebook, particularly putting some very powerful statements in support of what's going on. And I'm also, of course, encouraging my daughter and my grandkids that are out there. I have grandkids in their mid to late 20s, and so I'm encouraging them and helping them and guiding them, and they're really doing a great job. So I feel that that's partly what I have to do, support what's out there in other ways. Like you say, there's many ways to protest. When things get better, I might step out if we're still doing them. I don't mind. I've been protesting my whole life. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah. So
it is. I guess it is. Our time. Whoever is able to do it. And any way you can, writing or protesting or writing a letter, or showing up and peacefully.
And I'm doing a lot of Zoom calls. I'm doing virtual classrooms with kids, talking about these issues. I'm doing youth, intervention programs on Zooms. I'm doing virtual classrooms. I'm doing live streaming. In other words, I'm using social media too to speak on all the issues.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put a link below. Whoever's listening to this podcast, I'm going to put a link below to your website, which I'm looking at right now. And of course, whoever is in the area, if you're in the San Fernando Valley area, there's the books. I don't know if you still have it open, but it's Tia Chucha's Centro Cultural and Bookstore in Silmar, California. Yeah. And for those that don't know, it's not that far. It's by the 210 freeway. And actually, that's one of the places where I found my voice. I was very shy, and I was very. You probably remember how I was at the beginning. I was very stuttering and very unsure, and I'm like, well, yeah, I write something, but I'm not sure. But yeah, your young warriors that you have there. That's another thing that you're doing. Among many things, is getting the youth to speak up and to not be afraid of being in an audience. And I've seen some of the most amazing poets come out of there, and they're in their teens, and I'm like so moved by them, as well as your story and your
part. Yeah. You're part of our Tia Chucha family, part of Tia Chucha community, and everything's still happening, only it's all virtually. There's still virtual open mics there. I think if you give everybody the website, they can get there and find out. There's a social justice book club. In fact, this month, on June 20th at noon, they will be featuring my book, and I will be there to speak on the issues of my new book of essays, From Our Land to Our Land. People can get in there and register. There's virtual everything. There's even a yoga class virtually. There's indigenous native cosmology. There's all kinds of things that you can get out of there. And of course, I will recommend people if they want books, need books, contact tiachucha.org /bookstore. We sell books, and that's important. That's helping us try to survive the pandemic and all the other stuff that's happening.
Right. And actually, I'm proud to have my books there too.
Yeah.
And it's a place where I at the beginning I feel so welcome there. Everybody is so welcome. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it's virtual, I guess. But it's always been a place for healing. It's always been a place for where you feel any frustrations, any anxiety. You will go there, and there's guitar lessons, and so it's just an amazing spot, and hopefully pretty soon we'll be there live. But I wanted to speak about your latest book. So, From Our Land to our land. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, this is my first book of essays. I have 16 books. I write in all genres, so I got poetry, children's books, I got novels, I got short stories, and I got 2 memoirs. I've been writing publications around the country: New York Times, the LA Times, Chicago Tribune, the Christian Science Monitor, the Philadelphia Inquirer. I can name all the publications I've been published in. And at first I was going to put a collection of my essays, but what I decided to do is write new ones and then rewrite some of the older ones that I had. So it's all kind of like new essays. It's really not a collection of old stuff. I rewrote everything and I've updated. So it's about 12 essays, talk about different things, but I think it speaks a lot to the times that we're in. I'm trying to express to people that as a Chicano, as somebody from Mexico, as somebody with indigenous roots in Chihuahua, my mother, Tarahumara tribe, I can't be considered an immigrant. Those tribes have been around for tens of thousands of years, and they're connected to the U.S. Native tribes. They speak a lot of the linguistic ties and have cultural ties with Hopi and Pueblo and even California tribes and the Shoshone and Paiute, a lot of different tribes. So I feel like we're migrants, like migrants from all over the world. Human beings have been migrating since the beginning, tens of thousands of years, and that we shouldn't be treated as illegals or foreigners or, you know what I'm saying, treated as if we don't belong here. Yeah. I don't have a problem with anybody else being here. They got here different ways, as you know, blacks through slavery, whites through immigration and programs that Jewish people went through and whatever they went through. We're all here in this country. You coming from South America, there's a lot of reasons why people are here. It's all good, but we got to make space for everyone. You got to give everybody the same freedoms and the same equity issues and the same ability to survive. And that's what I think is important. So I'm trying to put that out there. As an indigenous Native person, I'm not trying to exclude anybody, but I do want people to recognize how different we are. We're not just immigrants. You know how that goes.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I, I want at some point I consider myself Peruvian American or Latino. Of course, I am Latino, but it comes to a point where I was born here, and so I believe I am an American as I don't know. Growing up, to me, being an American was being a gringo, was being Anglo-American, right? That was my ideal. So I don't know. It's all changing, and I'm proud to be Latino. Yeah. I'm proud to be bilingual. My family's roots are from Peru, but I was actually born here, and so now I'm. And the First Amendment that we have here, which is the freedom of speech, that's my primary goal. I've been battling with people on Facebook, and sometimes we disagree on many things, either politically or whatnot. But I treasure my First Amendment right. I so do not like censoring people. I don't like censoring or being censored, and so that's the primary goal that I have right now, is to have people like yourself come in to the podcast. Hopefully you have something to read, because I would love to share that with the rest of the listeners. But basically I wanted to have this invitation to whoever, maybe a young warrior, maybe Trina, maybe anybody from Tia Chuchas is welcome to call to reach out to me, and I would love to feature your work through my podcast. If there's a way to protest, if it's not out on the street, getting tear gas and getting bullet, what do you call it, rubber bullets or anything,
bullets, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I want to have this platform so you can express yourself and tell your story. And so I think that you're ready. You've always been ready. So I'll let you.
Well, thank you. I want to read something from Yeah, I want to read something from my book of essays. It comes off what I just said earlier. Again, my mother was Tarahumara, also known as Ramuri. It's a big tribe in Chihuahua, Mexico, and they're still there. I have visited down there. I have actually learned some of their language. I'm forgetting it because I don't use it very often. I still remember 2 or 3 words now. And they didn't quite want me there. When I first got there, they were like very like, we don't want to talk to you. And then I told them that I had roots through my mother, my grandmother, or great grandmother, and they looked at me and they go, "Really?" Because to them I look Mexican. They're so native that they don't even consider themselves Mexican. You know what I mean? I said, "Well, you look Mexican," you know, and I told them, "Well, yeah, I am, but I do have these roots," and they were happy to hear it because they told me nobody comes back. It's really sad. People leave, they don't come back. But then they opened their doors to me, and they were very beautiful and wonderful and welcoming. So I'm going to read you this small section about when I was born. It goes like this. Just before I was born, my mother crossed an international bridge from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, to El Paso, Texas. The year was 1954. I'm an anchor baby, in quotes. And so what? Migrants from Europe, including many pregnant women lining up at Ellis Island, some ready to birth. More than 350 babies were born there in a 60-year history. This is against the idea that anchor babies are something bad or wrong or, you know, whoever, you know, when they put that out there. Those migrants knew because of law that a U.S.-born child helped to petition for residency and later citizenship. Demeaning anyone for making the best case they can for themselves is ridiculous. More notably, the Chihuahuan Desert cuts a large swathe to the U.S. Southwest and northern Mexico. The Rarámuri have resided in the Chihuahua Desert for at least 8,000 years of the desert's existence, way before the Spanish, Portuguese, English, or French, before borders, before, quote, legal documents. El Paso is within the confines of this desert, which intersects 2 nations and several states. When my mother gave birth to me across the border, we went from our land to our land. And that's the name of my book. I don't recognize the border in that sense. This is our land, you know, and we just went from our land to our land, from Ciudad Juarez over to El Paso. And I think that's important. Again, not the idea that nobody else should be here or anything, but really the idea that we shouldn't be treated as if we don't belong. You know how many people get told, go back to Mexico? Many of them are not even Mexicans. It doesn't matter. How many people are being told don't speak Spanish, and how many people are just, you know, constantly being hammered. So it's a ridiculous thing. If you don't mind, I want to read another poem that
I don't mind at all.
Okay. So, and this poem is really about the power of words, because, again, that's really my way. I contribute in many ways, as you know, from building organizations to marching to protesting to working with gang youth, working in prisons. I've done that work for 40 years. I contribute in many ways, but my number one way that I give is through my writing. I was not taught very well in the schools of Watts and East LA and San Gabriel Valley where I went, and I was not. I was punished for speaking Spanish. In those days, you could get swatted, and I still speak Spanish, but it wasn't because they weren't trying to knock it out of me. My parents spoke nothing but Spanish at home, and I thank the Creator for that. I think that they did. I'm glad they did. I love that I can speak Spanish, but I didn't know English very well. Besides them knocking Spanish out of me, they didn't teach us English very well. So I made writing and having language my lifelong struggle. And now, as you say, I have a bookstore. We have our Literacy and Arts Culture Center. I have 16 books. You know, it's all in the written word. So let me read you this poem that I wrote called Words. And it goes like this. The thing is, I wanted to be a writer even before I knew what writing was about. I wanted to carve out the words that swim in the bloodstream, to press a stunted pencil onto paper so lines break free like birds in flight, To fashion words with hair, lengths and lengths of it, washed with dawn's rusting drizzle. I yearned for mortar-lined words, speaking in their own boasting tongues, not to diminish frightened stammering of my childhood, but to shape scorching syllables with midnight dust. Words that stood up in bed, danced merengues and cumbias that incinerated the belly like a shimmering habanera. Words with a spoonful of tears, buckshot, traces of garlic, cilantro, aerosol spray, and ocean froth. Words that guffaw, tarnished smooth faces, and wrung song out of silence. Words as languid as a woman's stride, as severe as a convict's gaze, herniated like a bad plan, soaked as in a summer downpour. I aspired to walk inside these words, to manipulate their internal organs, surrounded by veins, gray matter, and sulceros, to slam words down like the bones of a street domino game, and to crack them in two like lovers' hearts.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and I think everybody has gifts like that. Yeah, I think people have gifts from all kinds of things. Mine just happens to be language, and it shouldn't have been. That's the last thing they wanted to give me when I was growing up, and that's the thing that I ended up doing more than anything.
Yeah, I learned I learned a lot, but what I learned also is the power of code switching, and I learned it from Edith De Anda, and she taught me about it, and I was like, what is code switching? And when she explained it to me, and I'm like, wow, that makes such a impact on your poetry and the message, you know? It's like, well, it's like you're saying grandmother or abuelita. What sounds better to you? I'm like, wow, of course. No question about it. But, you know, and it's just the essence, what do you feel better? What do you feel in your heart is true, and if you want to say corazón, go ahead and say it. You don't have to, make people comfortable. That's another thing too, because I was trying to make people comfortable and not express myself sometimes or censor myself, right? But when I started just doing it, just like you're doing it, it impacts you more that way.
Right, absolutely. And one of the things about it is I've been doing it since my first book came out in 1989, but of course Chicanos have been doing it even longer, and others, Dominicanos, Puerto Ricanos, other writers here in this country have been doing this because Spanish is very much a part of this country. It was here before English. It's still a conqueror's language. We get it, English and Spanish. But they want to diminish Spanish, but it's so much part of who we are as Americans. And you and me being born here, we are Americans, but we also have this ability to go from one language to the other. And it's part of millions and millions of people. It's not just a small group of people. And we need to be seen or appreciated or recognized that that's what we do. And, of course, other people have other languages, and it's all valid to me. I don't have a problem with people learning English as a common language because that's where we're at. I spent years trying to dominate English only because, again, they try to deny it to me. But I think it's also beautiful to hear the Spanish. And if people got Korean or Japanese or they have, other languages from Europe, from German, or whatever it might be, I think it's all beautiful. And most of the world, as you know, speaks 2-3 languages. And yet here in this country, we're constantly being pushed to forget other languages and just speak one. It doesn't make sense to me. And then, of course, all the native languages in this country, 500 and I don't know how many tribal peoples here with languages that cross so many. And then, of course, the languages of Mexico, all down Central America, all the way to South America, all the amazing languages that people have. They shouldn't be forgotten. And that's what I'm for. I'm for us recapturing the language. And knowing how to speak 2-3 languages, and that's what people do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. I'm thinking about another friend of mine. She's Mayan. She's from Guatemala, and I remember her on an open mic, and she was reading her her first poem in Mayan, and it was
that's beautiful.
of course somebody in the crowd was like, speak English, and
no, that's awful.
and I was like, hold on a second, this is freedom of speech, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's what it is. Yeah, and I've heard poets do poetry in Russian and Japanese. I don't understand a word they're saying, but when they're poets, you can feel what they're saying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I get moved anyway. The way they take their presence and how they move and how their language begins to have a rhythm, and it's like I don't know what you're saying, but I get what you're feeling, and to me that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of people who speak these distant languages in Mexico, Central America. I was in Delaware when I was traveling around the whole state speaking, and I ended up in a laundromat, and I heard the quiche from Guatemala. And I don't know the language, but when I hear it, I know what it is. And I went to these people, and I say, you're from Guatemala. And they go, see. I talked to them in Spanish. They knew some Spanish. And then they said, and we talked for a while, and then they said that on Sundays they have a big church gathering of all the quiche-speaking people in that part of Delaware come together, and they invited me to come. I showed up that Sunday. There was maybe 300 people. They were all farm workers, and they were all Quiche-speaking Guatemalan Mayan people. Beautiful, amazing. We had a great talk. And this country is filled with that. Everywhere you go, there's Mixtecos, Zapotecos. There's all kinds of tribes from everywhere coming in here and speaking the languages. They're working in the field. Some of them are the essential workers that people don't really give. They talk about them, but they don't always give them the time of day. They're keeping things going, and they speak these languages that are so rich and go so deep in these lands.
Right. Beautiful. We actually have time for one more if you have another piece you want to read.
Absolutely, and
Like
maybe what I'll do is read one, a shorter one, to my mother, the Tarahumara Native. Most Mexicans don't know what tribes they're from, which happens all over. But my mother did always tell me what we were, and I appreciate that. Well, my mother, she passed on, but she did always remind me, and I did Tia Chucha in many ways for her. It was named after a tia, but it was also for her and the indigenous. So this poem is called Heavy Blue Veins, Watts, 1959. My mom, she was very sickly since she didn't have no teeth in the 20s. When I was born, she was very heavy, obese. She had diabetes. She had thyroid problems. She eventually had cancer. She had Alzheimer's. My poor mom went through so much. And that's because of the world we live in, because the Tarahumaras, the Raramuri, are very healthy when they live traditional. But as soon as they leave the traditional lands, my mom was born in Chihuahua City in the ghetto, La Tarahumara. She was taught, in the Catholic faith, and grew up in a world that wasn't her world. And she got sick. You get civilized and things bad happen to her. But one of the things is this poem, and I'll read it. It goes like this. From, Heavy Blue Veins, Watts, 1959. Heavy blue veins streak across my mother's legs. Some of them bunched up into dark lumps at her ankles. Mama periodically bleeds them to relieve the pain. She carefully cuts and gores veins with a razor and drains them into a porcelain-like metal pail called a tina. I'm small, and all I remember are dreams of blood. Me drowning in a Red Sea, blood on sheets on the walls, splashing against the white pail in streams out of my mother's ankle. But they aren't dreams. It is Mama bleeding into day and tonight, bleeding a birth memory, my mother, my blood, by the side of the bed, me on the covers, and her slicing into black vein to some dark, forbidding red nightmare, which never stops coming, never stops pouring, this memory of Mama and blood and Watts.
In her memory, that's awesome. And also, Tia Chucha was very your Tia story is very interesting to me too.
Yeah, she was a very creative, independent woman, and I think I wanted to honor that spirit. Mexico's hard to be an independent woman, but there are many. She didn't want to marry nobody because she didn't want no man to tell her what to do. She was a poet. She was a guitar player. She sang. She did her own proverbs. She painted. Can you imagine a woman doing all these things in a very machista culture? but she did, and I admired her. My family made fun of her because they kept saying she was crazy. Está loca. But I knew she wasn't crazy. She was just her own person, and I loved that spirit, and I wanted Tia Chuchas the Centro to carry that spirit for our whole community.
Right. And so for those that are listening, once again, I want to remind them that the website for Tia Chuchas is tiachucha.org. You can go there, check out the bookstore, the programming, whatever you guys are doing online. You can do donations, as they're always helping the community in the East San Fernando Valley, as well as LuisJRodriguez.com is your website. That's where they can find your publications and your blog. I didn't know you have a blog. I know that you have a blog now. I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna add more stuff. So, yeah.
And so hopefully this is not the last time. I'm sure that we'll be talking more. But I do appreciate you calling today, taking some time out of your busy schedule and your. But I'm glad that you're doing well. And, I didn't know that you were sick before, so.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you and your audience. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you
very much.
Say hello to Trina. Say hello to your son and all your family. Hopefully, we'll meet soon. And for those that are listening to my podcast, as you always know, you can follow me on. Now I'm gonna be on YouTube because they're censoring me on Facebook and elsewhere. So I'm gonna keep shifting. I'm gonna keep moving until my voice is not censored anymore. So thank you guys for listening. And here I take it out with "Didn't See That Coming."
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Hit the record button.
Gosh, that's swell.
Well, I didn't see that coming.